It's DUE, tell I see you by this point, you're reading my mind. It's time for football. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, man. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, yeah.
Welcome to Football Game Plan's NFL All 32 show. I am Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and today we're going to preview the Green Bay Packers and the upcoming 2020 NFL season. But before we get started, let's take a look at some of the key storylines heading into the Packers season as we go into our 4-minute offense. Last year, the Green Bay Packers looked to be steamrolling toward the Super Bowl up until they met up with the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Championship game, and it wasn't the fact that they lost the game, it was the way they lost it and how embarrassing it was overall. The Packers' offense looked lifeless, their offensive line couldn't block the 49ers' defensive front, and on defense, stopping the run was optional. In fact, it was downright non-existent. With such an embarrassing loss, it can be hard for a team to shake off that as they approach the next season. So usually because of mini camps, OTAs, teams are slowly getting back to the routine and focusing on the upcoming season. Now because of COVID-19, the first time they'll hit the field together as a group will be at training camp. Yes, they'll be chomping at the bit to shake off that playoff stench. And to be quite honest, the current new norm may be the perfect way to quickly get over it, as they won't have time to dwell on it or answer any questions about it. In the first round of the 2020 NFL Draft, Green Bay selected Utah State quarterback Jordan Love to the chagrin of many Packer faithful. But when you analyze the why of the pick, it does make a lot of sense. From Green Bay's perspective, their expectations of winning will always keep them on the back end of the draft in round 1, far away from the top 5 or even top 10 for that matter, which is why they felt as though taking Jordan Love, who they perceived to be a franchise quarterback, when they had the opportunity, was definitely a smart one. It gives them time to slowly get him acclimated to the program, fine-tune some technical parts of his game, and have him ready to go when they decide to move on from Aaron Rodgers, or when Aaron Rodgers decides to move on from Green Bay. Either way, because of his high draft slot, you can view Love as the heir apparent to the quarterback throne, hoping to carry on the tradition of stellar QB play, going from Brett Favre to Rodgers to eventually Jordan Love. I think a big part of the reason why Packer fans were upset at the Jordan Love pick was due to the fact that they felt as though the Packers should have used that pick on a player that could have helped them this season. Many wanted a wide receiver with that pick. However, judging by how they got beat in the playoffs and how head coach Matt LaFleur's former team, the Tennessee Titans, fared in their playoff run and how they attacked the rest of the draft, it gave me the impression that a philosophy shift is coming to Green Bay. Maybe they want to be the hammer and not the nail up front along the line of scrimmage, and also with their offense. I think LaFleur wants to be a power running team that can wear down opponents' defenses while having the defense apply nonstop pressure throughout the course of a game. It's why they selected A.J. Dillon when they already had 2 solid backs on the roster. It's also why they added 3 offensive linemen and an H-back in the draft. This wasn't about 2020 in so much as it was about 2020 and beyond. This season feels like it's a pivotal one for a few of the young players on the Packers roster, as they will be thrust into more prominent roles on the team. Players like linebacker Oren Burks, wide receiver Allen Lazard, and tight end JACE STERNBERGER, just to name a few, will be in position to seize the opportunity that's in front of them. Right now, in his second year as a head coach, Matt LaFleur is looking to slowly turn over the roster at certain positions, and if some of these players can become foundational players, it goes a long way in answering some of the potential questions that they have entering the 2020 season. Before the 2020 season is over, Aaron Rodgers will be 37 years old, and the future Hall of Famer is a shoo-in for his ballot type of player without question. Now, the true question is whether or not he has lost a bit of that specialness to his game, and are his skills declining. Now, I wouldn't say that they're declining, but I will say that there are times when you're watching the Packers play and you say to yourself, man, he doesn't look like the same Aaron Rodgers. A lot of that is Father Time, who we know is undefeated. Maybe that could be a reason why they drafted Jordan Love in the first round, and also seem to be heading toward more of a run-heavy based offensive attack to counterbalance Rodgers' decline, so to speak. Regardless of that, to me, he's still one of the top 7 quarterbacks in football right now, which is still pretty good. Now, Jordan Love does have the luxury of developing and working on the finer things of the position and within his game, and if we don't have a preseason, he'll have to make sure to maximize his time that he has both on the field and off the field. Green Bay has a very solid backfield in my opinion. I like what they have in both Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. Now Jones is a weaver, a back that has one of the most fluid running styles in football. He's gotten better each and every year and is coming off his first 1,000-yard season in his career. Also scored 16 rushing touchdowns last season, which led the NFL. Williams is a between the tackles type guy who consistently moves ahead. He does not waste any time in getting north and south and fills in very nicely for Jones. I'm also excited about rookie second-round pick A.J. Dillon out of Boston College. His game reminds me a lot of Derrick Henry. He's got superb strength, underrated speed, and acceleration. I believe he's going to go back and forth with Jamal Williams for that RB2 role behind Jones, and it wouldn't surprise me to see a situation where both Dillon and Williams are on the field at the same time in some sort of heavy package. So let it be known, Green Bay will be running the ball and be running it well this season. At wide receiver is where the Packers hope to see the biggest jump from his young players this season. They have one significant foundational piece already in place in Davante Adams. The 7-year veteran is coming off his third straight Pro Bowl season and would have had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons had it not been for an injury that caused him to miss a couple of games. I mean, he only fell 3 yards short anyway from getting 1,000 yards. Adams is Aaron Rodgers' go-to guy and one of the most underrated players in the game. Now, outside of him is where Green Bay hopes to see the growth from the likes of Allen Lazard, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Equanimeous St. Brown, and Jake Kumerow. Now, instead of pinning hopes completely on younger players, the Packers went out and signed veteran Devin Funchess to help alleviate some of that pressure on the outside. I think they're in a much better spot at tight end. They were able to bring back veteran Mercedes Lewis to give them a vet presence right there in line, but they are really anticipating a major jump from second-year tight end JACE Sternberger. He has the potential to be that consistent flex tight end option in the passing game. He, along with Robert Tonyan, are the move-type tight ends that get vertical and find openings within a defense. Third-round pick JOSIAH DEGUARA out of Cincinnati is a solid catch-and-run player that figures to play more of an H-back, fullback type role within this offense, just giving Green Bay another viable weapon out there on the field, as well as keeping them versatile when they bring multiple tight ends out there on the field. The offensive line for Green Bay is pretty stable heading into the season. NFC Championship game notwithstanding, the Pack did pretty well up front as a group, and I'm excited to see second-year guard Elton Jenkins this year. I thought he acclimated himself very well as a rookie, and getting Lane Taylor back healthy just helps bolster the depth on the inside. Now, the newcomer of the group is right tackle Ricky Wagner, who comes over in free agency from the Detroit Lions. The question is whether or not he can be an adequate replacement for Brian Bulaga, who departed via free agency. Right tackle will be one of the major focal points of training camp, and backing up Wagner is Alex Light, who has the capability of playing either tackle spot. Now, sticking with the theme of a philosophy change, Green Bay invested heavily up front in the 2020 NFL Draft with 3 picks: John Runyan, the guard out of Michigan, Jake Hansen, the center out of Oregon, and Simon Stepanek out of Indiana, who can play both guard or tackle. So it's clear to see that offensive line, along with the running game and the H-back, was all part of the plan for the Packers. Moving over to the defensive side of the ball and starting with the Packers defensive line, this is a unit that contributed to the Packers finishing 23rd against the run last year, and one where they're going to need to take a major step forward in 2020. I do like what they have, though, in Dean Lowry and Kenny Clark. Both guys play an integral role to their defense. Tyler Lancaster does a solid job of playing upfield and being disruptive and playing through the whistle, so their starting 3 is just fine. Depth is where they're looking for guys like KINGSLEY, KEKE, and Montravius Adams to take a big jump and help round out this core. I do like free agent signee Trayvon Hester as a player to keep an eye on. He's got the ability to be a pressure player on the inside because of his quickness. At linebacker, they are very strong on the edges. You look at Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith, they combined for 25.5 sacks and 28 TFLs, putting themselves in the conversation for the best rushing duo in the NFL. Now, the hope is that second-year player Rashawn Gary can join the conversation and really help turn up the heat on opposing quarterbacks. Gary finished with only 2 sacks and only 3 TFLs. He's another one of these young players that Green Bay will be counting on in year 2. I'm intrigued by undrafted rookie free agent outside linebacker Tipa Galeai out of Utah State. He's a long, athletic player who can play with his hand on the ground or as a stand-up edge rusher. He'll be an interesting follow during training camp. Green Bay also brought in free agent signing Christian Kirksey to hold down one of the starting inside linebacker spots, seeing that they lost both of their previous starters to free agency. Now, Kirksey comes over from the Cleveland Browns, where he was solid, but he dealt with some injuries the last couple of seasons. But when he was back healthy in 2016 and 2017, he had over 130 tackles in back-to-back seasons. Now the Packers are hoping that Kirksey shows up this season. Oren Burks figures to be ready for a breakout season, or at least ready for extended playing time to show what he can do. So far, he's been a sub player and a spot guy, and he steps into a starting role, looking to replace a guy who finished with 155 tackles last season. If he's not up for the task, then 5th round pick KAMAL Martin out of Minnesota could vie for that role. He's got the capability to play inside or outside, but as an inside linebacker, he helps them out in the coverage aspect, giving them some athleticism and versatility. The Packers have one of the better young secondaries in football. Cornerback Jaire Alexander is already one of the better man defenders in the league and does a fantastic job regardless of the matchup he faces on Sunday. They were able to get solid play out of a healthy Kevin King, and finally, Kevin King's health and emergence last year really came up big for this unit. Chandon Sullivan displayed sticky coverage throughout the season, and it seems like he's taken on that number 3 cornerback role more so than a former 2nd round pick Josh Jackson out of Iowa, who Green Bay still seems to not know how or when to get him on the field. I would also be watching out for Kadar Holman, the 2nd-year corner out of Toledo, to become more involved as well. Having a matchup safety with ball skills like Darnell Savage can make any secondary look good. He was as good as advertised as a rookie, picking off 2 passes and racking up 55 tackles. He paired up perfectly with Adrian Amos, who finished 3rd on the team in pass breakups and also picked off 2 passes. Now, reserve Raven Green provides good versatile depth at safety, and as a sub package guy, they get him back healthy this season, which will be a huge boost to their defense as a whole. The Packers have outfitted their secondary with rangy matchup guys with ball skills, which is why I'm very excited about what they can do as they continue to move forward as a unit. Football Game Plan is brought to you in part by 9th & Lux. Visit the website 9thandlux.com and check out the clothing gallery. Do You Music with feature artist IW and his latest release, Mr. Hunter. That's doyoumusic.com. You can also find it available on iTunes as well as Spotify. Nesby Phipps, art, life, entertainment. NesbyPhipps.com. Grind It Out Fitness. Visit the website grinditoutfitness.com and download the app. The Academy of Broadcast Media in Hackensack, New Jersey. Football Game Plan is brought to you in part by Financial Coaching LLC, investment, retirement, security. Stewardship Credit, financial growth is in your hands. Stewardshipcredit.com. Adrienne Marie Photo, photographer, writer, management. AdrienneMariePhotography.com. Lock Multimedia. Be sure to order your copy of the Go-Go Offense by Coach Brennan Marion on footballgameplan.com/GoGoOffense. Coach Marion goes through the ins and outs of his explosive offense, one that's tearing up the college football field and putting a lot of points on the scoreboard. Again, you can order your copy at footballgameplan.com/GoGoOffense. Look for undrafted rookie free agent Zach Johnson out of North Dakota State to be one of the surprises at Packers camp. He was one of the key cogs in the North Dakota State run game that dominated at the point of attack, which fits right into ultimately what Green Bay wants to do and be as a team. Defensively, I like Will Sunderland out of Troy. He gives them a long, lengthy corner that can press well, but also shows good spatial awareness and ball skills to be effective in zone coverage. I think JOSIAH DEGUARA will have a huge impact as a rookie. He's going to give them their version of Kyle Juszczyk in the sense that he can catch, block, and carry the ball if need be, but mainly the blocking and catching part is where he'll have the most impact this season. Look for KAMAL Martin out of Minnesota to shine during camp and will ultimately play himself into significant minutes at inside linebacker. It will be hard to ignore the versatility that he brings to the table. Offensive tackle Ricky Wagner will be the biggest X factor for the Packers this season. The offensive line wants to continue to be a strong suit of the team, and they need Wagner to be an asset, not a liability, considering the guy that he's going to be replacing. And defensively, I look at KINGSLEY KEKE to be an X factor. Depth is critical in the NFL, and at this point, depth can be viewed as starters in waiting, so they need to have a guy that can be an interior pressure player next to a guy like Kenny Clark. And when they drafted KEKE, They envision him being that guy, and now is the time for him to pay dividends. Look for tight end JACE STERNBERGER to be a breakout player this season. He's a smooth route runner and has the pass catching ability to be a problem for opposing defenders. This is a season where he'll take a huge step forward, in my opinion. Defensively, I feel the same way for RASHAN. He's been trying to shake that inconsistent tag since his Michigan days. Last year wasn't a year to dispel those thoughts. This season might be the year where the potential matches the production. One of the reasons for optimism for Green Bay, you look at that back seven on defense, they have some studs. Preston Smith, Zadarius Smith, Jair Alexander, Adrian Amos, Darnell Savage. Those are game changers, guys that are able to keep you in or win games outright with their play. Speaking of play, Aaron Rodgers can still play. I know he's slightly in a decline because of age, but let's not get it twisted. He's still one of the top 7 quarterbacks in the game, and their offense has some options. We talked about their run game. I love the depth of the backfield. I think at receiver, they have some guys that are capable of getting the job done. They have one of the best receivers in the game, Devontae Adams, and their tight end position, I think, is athletic and versatile. So they have a lot to be optimistic about in Green Bay. A cause for concern would be the point of attack play is slightly questionable going into the season. Not critically questionable, because you're talking about an offensive line that's very solid, but you still have some slight questions about the right tackle position. On defense, do they have the depth to back up their frontline starters? Both of which will have to be ready to go and ready to play when the season starts, because the point of attack play is where you win football games. If they're weaker there, their season could look a lot like that NFC title game. The road to the Super Bowl for the Packers goes as follows. Number one, their offense improves on third down. If they can play well situationally, it helps them put more points up on the board and start to blow teams out. Now, defensively, their defensive line has to dominate. We talked about what they have as frontline starters. If they're able to get a good rotation going and start to really dominate and flip the script on how they stop the run, they could be dangerous. And those tight ends have to make an impact in the passing game. They have some athletic tight ends, guys that can be matchup problems. And if they're able to make an impact in the passing game, it takes some of the pressure off of those young receivers. But if they all work together as a unison, Green Bay could finally get over that hump once again and get back to the Super Bowl. I have the Packers finishing first in the NFC North. I think we'll see an offense that'll be a bit more complementary to Aaron Rodgers' skill set. We'll see more running, but we'll see a lot more play action passing, a lot more shots going deeper down the field. Defensively, I talked about their back seven. I think they'll be the reason why this team can hold off a team like Minnesota and finish first in the NFC North. So that's it for this edition of Football Game Plan's NFL All 32 show. I am Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Be sure to follow me on all of my social media accounts, and don't forget to check out and subscribe to the Football Game Plan Network located at youtube.com/footballgameplan. Also subscribe on iTunes to Football Game Plan Podcast and leave us a 5-star rating. That's where you can find our NFL All 32 podcast. And keep it locked here on our Football Game Plan YouTube channel, where we'll have a ton of Packers related video content coming down the pike on our All 22 show, our fantasy football starting lineup, and our best bets.
It's E-U-E, you tell I see you by this point, you're reading my mind. It's time for football. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, man. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, yeah.